because we've talked about macro markets, and next time we're going to look at the data, which could give us a chance to drive direction in the market this week. How's the data look, Ash?
Oh, I've just been having a decent look through, and what I find is probably the most interesting is the lack of specifics when you get to really the extreme. So with the COT data, we really want to see it at the extreme levels to kind of get more comfortable with whether we should be more confident about buying a certain instrument or selling a certain instrument. But none of them are really at the extreme. The most interesting is the yen. And the yen is the most interesting because this green line here is the index of the commercial traders. And as it pops up here, it's showing us the strength of the buying. And that is probably, when we look back historically, this is probably giving us quite an extreme signal, even though it's not at a very, very high level. We'd want it kind of like nearer the 100 zone, if you like. It's currently sitting at 73. So anything over 80 is suggesting that something, in a kind of buy area. Hasn't got to that area yet, but it has popped up quite significantly here. I think it's interesting that Jules is talking about the potential weakness in the stock market after we see some of those earnings releases come out, because then people may well start to go to more safe haven assets, and the yen looks at this period anyway to be one that people could get to. If we look down here, then this actually shows us how the index is calculated. So we can see that the selling has come off, rather than this red line here is showing us that the selling is starting to subside in the yen, even though the buying hasn't really shot up. So it's more that people are coming out of their short positions with the yen, and this does show us the chart. It's not an MT4, but this does show us that the chart. And if you look along right to 2019, you can see that we are in this support area here, and this is the low in the yen that we saw during the pandemic. So I'm looking at potential yen to the upside, so looking at some yen strength. But I think it's more interesting this week to maybe focus on some of the seasonals, because if we just have a quick scroll through, the Aussie is suggesting that we are probably near or at a peak, and it is likely to be falling into around about the end of May. And I'll whip through these relatively quickly. The pound looks like it could have a bit of a rally, but it's not strong enough to be significant. So I'm not sure whether I'd want to kind of put anything on the pound. So at the minute, the Aussie is winning as a signal for some downside. Canadian dollar looks like we do see some strength as well, and it looks like that strength may well continue right up until September. So that looks like a stronger signal. The euro is relatively flat, and it's important to talk about these, even though they're not showing us an extreme level. When we see that this kind of thing with the seasonals and the COT data, I can tell you would suggest something similar where it's fairly flat. It would kind of say if you're in a trade in a direction with the euro and you are finding that you are getting a trending market, which this would suggest that there may not be one, stick with it and just get those stops at levels just in case things do drastically change. But it looks quite gentle. Now, if we look at the yen, again, we just looked at the COT data with the yen, and look at the yen, how the yen can pop to the upside here. It can sort of it looks like we may well be carving out the lowest points here after a dip. Yes, it dips again in June, but really we could be on a pretty good run with the yen, with some dips and an expansion right the way up to the middle of October. So the yen is probably the most interesting. The Swissy as well, relatively flat. And just finally, I'm just going to bring you with currencies. I'm going to bring the dollar, because the dollar also looks like it could be going into a bit of a weak period seasonally as well. So dollar yen looks like a candidate. I didn't look at the Kiwi, but the Kiwi as well would follow what's happening with Australia, where it looks kind of weak. So Kiwi yen short, Aussie yen short, dollar yen short as well. So it looks like the yen may well be one to focus on. Gold now, because we've been talking about gold, I want to have a quick look at gold, because I've got a slightly different opinion on gold. I think gold down to 1560, 1570 is achievable, and I'm quite keen to see that happen. Let's have a quick look at the COT data. COT data, the index has popped up to around about this 50 line, completely non-committal. That is not suggesting a rally in gold from the significant low point, to be honest, at the 1680 level. Of course, they're always selling. The selling's dipped down a little bit, but it's not particularly significant. When we see it down here, this is when we see the real rally happen with gold. So not suggesting a rally in accordance to the selling data. The buying data is quite flat. And then if we bring in the seasonal aspect of gold, then what we have, make sure I don't bring up the wrong one. There we go. There's seasonals there. Look at this, flat right the way through. You know, a few kind of like moves to the upside, but nothing really significant right the way through to the middle of June. So I'm really kind of focusing on the potential for gold to come down to, as I say, around about the 1550 level. And just very, very quickly, I'll show you the chart. Look at this area of potential resistance here. Looks like we could be getting to that point and then popping back down again. And the reason I like the 1550 is because of this relatively strong line here, and it goes back historically. So you can look at between 1550 and 1500. So I'm looking for further downside with gold. Not that I'd want to trade it, but it means that I wouldn't want to go long currently. And that's pretty much what I've got.
Cheers, Ash. Thanks for that. We'll be getting some interesting. We'll be